Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, and welcome to the last webinar of the series Demystify the Audit Process. Um, this last webinar will take approximately 1.5 hours and will be focused on the outcomes of the Amfori Integrity Project and how they are translated into enhancements of the Audit Assurance Programme. And as usually, it targets current or potential members, business partners, and other relevant Amfori stakeholders. So this series was designed to help you understand the amfori audit process and how the amfori Audit Assurance Programme aims at ensuring transparency, quality, and integrity across all monitoring activities within the amfori framework. So it's the fifth webinar, but all of the four previous one helped to cover and understand the amfori process and to manage audit fatigue and to ensure audit integrity. And this will be the key topic of this last and fifth and last webinar. So before we start, very happy to see the number of participants is growing. A few housekeeping rules. So all of the participants will be muted, but you are more than welcome to share your questions via the Q&A function. Please be noted that the chat will be deactivated. Recording and slides will be shared after the webinar, and by the end of the webinar, we will share a satisfaction survey with you to better understand what we can do to fit your needs or to better fit your needs. So all your questions will be answered during the webinar itself or in the Q&A section of the webinar. And the recordings will be shared with the registrants in the end of the webinar. So today's agenda, we will start with some welcoming remarks, and then we will share with you what was done in 2025 within the Audit Integrity Project. Also, we will be disclosing and explaining how APSCA and amfori had collaborated under the scope of this project and what activities do we have planned in 2026. So before the conclusive remarks, there will be a Q&A session where we will be more than happy to answer your questions. So before we start, allow me to introduce myself. I'm the auditing manager at Amfori, Sonia, and Elze, my colleague from Coms, that is helping to deliver the webinar today. The speakers for today are Ellen Kessner, with the Head of Operations at Amfori. She will do the opening and closing remarks for us today. Very happy to see her here. Stephanie Ragan and Ross Nova from APSCA to explain how APSCA and Amfori collaborated through the year in the Audit Integrity Project. And the two auditing experts at Amfori, Sevan Shimen and Bethany Dixon Cave. Sevan mostly linked with the quality activities at Amfori, and Bethany that was leading the Audit Integrity Project throughout the year. And now I hand over to Helen to help us open this last webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Sonia. So, good morning, good day. Welcome to our today's webinar, and also thank you for joining this webinar. As Sonia explained, it's the last one of a series of webinars about Amfori's auditing activities. Today we're covering a very important topic about audit integrity. Audit integrity activities are embedded in our Audit Assurance Programme, and you will learn today more how we set up this program and which parts are covered by audit integrity. But I would like to highlight that everything we are doing about audit assurance, audit integrity are core activities of amfori. Why is it so important that we invest in those kind of activities and program? It is important because we are setting with our BCI, BPI audits and also QMI standards. And those standards are important. They are important to ensure compliance. They are important to give our members value. The value is for members to have confidence in our amfori audits. And we know that we are a trusted and reliable scheme. We are offering high value audits, and members trust us. They trust our audit results. They have confidence that our results of audits help them to gain visibility of risks in their supply chains. They are also confirming what is working well. And our audits are also supporting our members for mitigating risks and also helping them to prevent risks in the future. So audit quality, audit integrity is key for having trust and confidence in audit results. And this is where we are focusing on when we talk about audit integrity. We will learn today as well that we invest in the credibility and quality of our audits through conducting our audit integrity activities. And we are not doing it alone. We are doing it together with our auditing companies, with other stakeholders like APSCA. We also do it together with an external partner who is also ensuring audit quality. Um, we are also focusing on reducing risks in the way how we conduct our audit request audit process in general. So we also try to identify where we have risks in our auditing processes and also work proactively on removing unethical practices if we can identify them. And the third pillar, what I already mentioned, is it's really about collaboration with many partners, many stakeholders in this process to work on joint activities, understanding how we can implement best practices across several players. It includes also our members, business partners, suppliers, APSCA, consultants that are also playing a role sometimes. And our audit integrity activities are also focusing on finding a way how we can continuously improve our auditing process, our auditing methodology, and also how we collaborate with third parties. And it is, of course, also to understand the importance of data and data integrity. It's also about understanding how we interpret data and how we also can use data to ensure that our audit results are trustworthy and also provide actionable recommendations. That's also something we look into this next year a bit more detail. So let's go into the presentation of our audit integrity activities. Again, it strengthens our confidence and trust, having reliable audit results that help our members, yeah, again, to mitigate, manage, and prevent risks. And I'm very excited also to hear how we move on in 26 and how we can add value to our members, but also collaborate meaningful with other parties. And I give the word to the team to explain on the Audit Assurance Programme and how we embed audit integrity activities. So the floor is yours, Bethany. Thanks.
Thank you, Helen. Okay, so now I will get into just to set the stage, which Helen was kind of already doing for me, the Audit Assurance Programme, this really sets the foundation for our approach for governance compliance. And I think this context is really important because it kind of underpins the key elements we're going to discuss today. So the Integrity Project with its defined work packages and the Quality Programme, which my colleague Sivan will talk to you a little bit about later. And so I think by starting with this overarching framework, you can kind of better understand how these components interconnect and collectively strengthen amfori as a whole. So this assurance program, I just said, what is it? For those of you that's been at the webinars before, you will have seen this slide. So I'm sorry for that, but there's some new people that will be joining. So I think it's important to just set the scene. So the assurance program is designed to streamline, harmonize, and enhance the audit process. It's the overarching framework, as I mentioned. And, this AAP app is what we're nicknaming it, which in Dutch means monkey. So we're always having fun with that. It's all about maintaining trust in the integrity of our operations and protecting the stakeholder interests, such as yourselves. So this is a lovely visual, I think, just to give you a little bit more information. So on the right-hand side, when we're talking about audit quality, we're referring to the extent at which an audit is carried out, fully alignment with our professional standards. So it's not just about ticking boxes. It's really about ensuring that every audit delivers, reliable, credible, actionable results, to continuously improve. And yeah. So to achieve this, we have this really lovely comprehensive monitoring system in place. We have a strict acceptance criteria for monitoring partners and auditors, a mix of on-site, off-site activities, and then our in-depth investigations to address any concerns, which Sivan will speak to you a little bit more in detail. Left-hand side is the Integrity Project. So when we're talking about integrity, we're talking about this ethical conduct among stakeholders. Integrity is really the cornerstone of the entire audit process, this like unwavering commitment to honesty, objectivity, transparency. And we're always saying that it's all parties involved. So it's really sometimes I think when we're talking about integrity, it's specifically to do with the auditors or the suppliers who you're auditing, but we're really covering all the stakeholders involved in this ecosystem. So, and what I also like to mention is that without integrity, for me, even the most technically sound audit loses its value. So we place a really strong emphasis on safeguarding these principles at really every stage of the audit process. And then we've got here our lovely collaborative program. This is what it is. It's fundamentally what it is. It's strengthened over time. We saw a really big increase in this area this year because of the Integrity Project and how we had so many different stakeholders involved in the same room, online room. So, at its core, collaboration is bringing this shared responsibility, mutual benefits, hopefully. So, for example, when we're talking about suppliers and buyers, they're working together to align their expectations, hopefully reduce misunderstanding, kind of create a more common language, and hopefully kind of put an emphasis on continuous improvement, for example. So, as a result, we're hopefully having more consistent, credible, actionable data. And then this, in theory, will benefit every stakeholder in the chain. So also by connecting these stakeholders, we're hoping that the program is moving beyond just isolated audits and really shifts to this unified approach where we're delivering value across the supply chain. And a few benefits of this is efficiency. So we're really trying to reduce the duplication of efforts and streamline this process a little bit more. So we know our different stakeholders are trying to tackle the same issues in parallel. Transparency. So building trust across the supply chain, making information more accessible, I think is an obvious one. And then impact, turning these compliance checks into meaningful progress, driving improvement. It's not just about those audits in isolation. It's really creating this network of trust, partnership, delivering long-term value that everyone's involved in. So for me and how our team see it, the assurance program is really the foundation for that entire transformation. So now I'll just go on to the Integrity Project, a little recap. So the goal of the Integrity Project on the next slide was to enhance the credibility and reliability of the audit process. And remember, when we're talking about integrity, we're talking about this ethical conduct among stakeholders. So that's in a nutshell. We had 4 work packages. The reason we had these 4 is that they really represented the priority areas for amfori at the time. So these were the topics or the stakeholders critical to strengthening assurance and integrity. And second, we're super ambitious and we wanted to cover as much ground as possible. So this is why we also involved as many stakeholders as we could, but in a more structured way. So rather than kind of spreading the efforts thin or working in silos, these work packages were quite nice because they were addressing key challenges and there was also a lot of overlap. We had a lot of cross collaboration, coordination between the two. Some inputs were coming out of some were outputs into another work package as their inputs. So that was also really useful that we did this in parallel. So we're really trying to maximize the impact of this project. So before I hand this part over, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the support we've had while working with APSCA this year. So firstly, a special mention to Stephanie and Lisa. Their leadership, their partnership has really been instrumental in driving alignment and clarity. We've got aligned values and principles, really helped us drive forward together, and we've achieved a lot. So I think we have built a stronger, more integrated ways of working together. So I'd like to say collaboration is not just like a principle, but it's really embedded in our way of working. And then, so we'll have Stephanie speak a little bit later, but before that, we also have our APSCA CEO and President, Ross. And I'd like to say about Ross that he's been a really strong advocate for the Integrity Project from the beginning. He spoke at our kickoff, he spoke at a webinar for the AAP series, and he also gave us a platform, or APSCA and him gave us a platform at their recent annual event, so we could start to talk about our perspective with the Integrity Project, raise awareness about these integrity issues that are relevant for the industry as a whole, not just amfori, and see if we can start collaborating with even more stakeholders, our competitors in the future, because we do want to have a greater impact, and I think that's the future. So thank you, Ross.
Good morning. Hi, Bethany. Thank you for that. And hello, everybody. And thank you for having me speak. I'm excited to be here. And the collaboration that APSCA and amfori have is even beyond what Bethany summarized just there. This is a partnership that goes back years, and as Bethany noted, is getting stronger and stronger as time goes by, in no small part because it's just fun to work with everyone from amfori, and I learn something every time. So let me sort of step back. I can't see everybody, so I can see some of your names, and I was looking at the list, but I know some of you, but I don't know all of you, and I don't want to assume that you know what APSCA is, what we stand for, how we work, and all that sort of stuff. So if you will indulge me 5 minutes, let me just give you some background of what APSCA is, and then when I'm done, I'm going to turn this over to Stephanie Ragan from my team, who's been very involved in the day-to-day work with the Audit Integrity Project. So, APSCA, it is the Association of Professional Social Compliance Auditors, and we are the certification and oversight body for the social compliance auditing industry. So just how you have doctors and lawyers and accountants be professionalized by these oversight bodies, APSCA is the same thing for social compliance auditing. So what we do is we have member firms and we have member auditors. We have over 80 member firms. We have over 5,300 member auditors. So when you look at the auditing ecosystem, under our umbrella, we are trying to professionalize really the vast majority of the social compliance auditing industry. And amfori is a key partner with that. So let's go to the next slide. So how do we do that? We do that in 3 big ways. The first way is the professional standards, as I mentioned, training, certifications, membership. In order to become a member firm, there is a vetting and review process that we go through to make sure that you have governance and controls and training and integrity and all of those things that collaborative programs like amfori have, we make sure that our 80 plus member firms have both in paper and operationalized as well. For member auditors, the membership journey is very similar to any other profession. There's an educational requirement. We have a three-part test. And then every year, auditors have to complete 32 hours of continuing professional development in order to maintain those skills fresh and relevant. We have our competency framework and our code of conduct. So how do we do what we do? Our competency framework is kind of similar to what Bethany was just showing with that circle. The competency framework is the procedural and subject matter skills we expect member auditors, our certified social compliance auditors, to demonstrate when they're on the ground, in the factory, on the boat, and on the field to display forced labor, child labor, wages, those sorts of things. From a procedural perspective, we expect them to review documents, interview workers, interview management. We have very specific parameters, what makes up a competent audit. One of the things that we do that's out there is there are thousands of audit standards that are out there, and not all of them meet APSCA's definition of a competency standard. Obviously, BSCI does. We wouldn't be here if they didn't. But there are still a lot of schemes, protocols out there that don't, and APSCA does not oversee those. We don't recognize those, nor partner with groups that lead them. We set that universal foundation for procedural and substantive competency in the industry. Okay, so that's the what do we do, and then we make sure that we do it ethically, and that's our code of conduct, and that's where Stephanie and her team oversee the process. It's ethics. How do you do your work in a way that's ethical, repeatable? And if for some reason that work isn't ethical, we have a series of disciplinary bodies that will weigh in on any issues that are alleged. As representing the entire auditing ecosystem, you, as players in that ecosystem, have the ability to send us an email, give us a call, and say, hey, we have an issue. Then Stephanie and her team will take that in, make sure there's competent evidence, investigate it, and if push comes to shove, we put it in front of our independent disciplinary bodies for disciplinary measures. And we do. We discipline member firms, we discipline member auditors, and this year we're going to be publishing those decisions so that the world can sort of learn about how we're professionalizing the industry. Governance and collaboration, a big part of the governance and collaboration of what we do is actually not with our member firms and auditors, it's with collaborative programs like amfori. Right now, we have 15 collaborative programs, and they are, from a volume perspective, the biggest ones in the world. And we work with them, as Bethany mentioned, to make sure that we're tackling and addressing the same issues the same way at the same time together as an industry. It's a non-competitive space. We want auditing to always get better, to always be as ethical as it can be, and that's something that we collaborate together. So there are 14 other groups that we work with. We also have a stakeholder advisory board. The stakeholder advisory board is how Linda, the president of amfori, got to be on our board of directors. The stakeholder advisory board is a formal group that advises me and the APSCA staff on current issues, problems, challenges, and we engage back and forth on those issues outside of my board of directors so we can have real free-flowing current feedback to make APSCA always better and more relevant. And we also do public affairs. For example, there is a lot of current and pending legislation in the world that wants to govern social compliance auditing. And that's a space that amfori has played in for quite some length of time and frankly quite well. And we are doing that as well, representing sort of that broader ecosystem. We're engaging with South Korean government, Australia, Thailand, United States, the European Union on regulation that affects the entire global auditing ecosystem. And so that is our global reach. That is our market impact. As you saw earlier, we oversee almost 200,000 audits annually. And the goal of APSCA is not only to professionalize the work that we do, but in a way that makes workers' lives better for those that are in our supply chain. So why don't we move to the next slide? This is just a brief visual of those collaborative programs. You can see that Amfori is there, along with the other collaborative programs that are formally members of our collaborative program working group. Okay, now we can forward one more a visual of what I just mentioned in terms of the auditing ecosystem and how we represent it. And then why don't we forward one more, Bethany? I wanted to end on this slide just to show the history of how APSCA and amfori have been partnering together. As you can see in this fancy picture, that's our board of directors. Linda is a very important member of that board, and has worked with us and has facilitated between her and myself this expanded partnership with amfori. And again, it's not just the Audit Integrity Project, though that's what we're talking about today, but understand behind the scenes, if you're working with amfori, and you are because you're on this webinar, you're actually working with us and the broader auditing ecosystem. Amfori has been a leading voice in participating in our collaborative program working group, bringing other collaborative programs into the mix, and facilitating those tough conversations we all need to have in order to continue to build the credibility and effectiveness of social compliance auditing. So with that, let me turn it over to someone who's been intimately involved in the Audit Integrity Project since day one, and that is Stephanie Ragan, our Director of Code and Compliance. And I'll turn it over to you, Steph.
Thank you, Ross, and thanks everybody for joining. I too look through the participants and I see a lot of people that I've had a chance to meet, especially within the last few weeks. And thank you for those who were able to come to our annual meeting in Portugal. And we look forward to continuing to reach out to even more of you. And those of you who are on the call who are already in the Audit Integrity Program, great to see you. It's been a pleasure working with you. Before I jump into it, I just want to thank Helen for really laying the groundwork for the call today. And we agree we're very aligned with our purpose. So what we've done with the Collaborative Program Working Group, which is where everything kind of started for us, was in 2023 when I joined. I realized that we needed to work with the stakeholders a little bit more because our membership, as Ross indicated, covers member firms, auditing firms, and then also auditing auditors that are out doing social compliance audits. So in order for us to really get a full view and be able to provide the focus on standardization and oversight that APSCA provides within the ecosystem, we needed to work more closely with collaborative programs. So we've had a lot of success over the last couple of years. And through that, we were able to really visualize a program like this coming forward. So when amfori presented the opportunity to work on, we abbreviate everything, the AIP, the Audit Integrity Program, we were thrilled to work with them. Also because it allowed us to bring the results of the AIP to the full Collaborative Program Working Group so that this has a larger effect on the ecosystem. So we're bringing all the best practices and formative outcomes from the AIP to a larger group. And we're really happy to be in a unique position to help reinforce the oversight and control from an integrity perspective in the entire social compliant auditing world. So getting into that, thank you, Helen, thank you, Bethany, and thank you, Ross, for setting me up so well. At this point, I have just some tactical things to share with you. What I do at APSCA is lead the professional conduct team. So we have a wonderful, amazing team, Lisa, Ben, Mary Beth, and Lisa's our compliance manager. So she works hand in hand with me. She's spoken at other amfori events as well. And we work very much on setting the standard for the activities that happen from an integrity, ethical, and compliance perspective with our members, but we receive a lot of feedback from the industry. For example, we've been growing every year on how many allegations we receive. And just to give you an idea, when we launched this program on our Speak Up and empowerment through upskilling, training, making sure there's more awareness on how to conduct ethical audits, both from a member firm perspective, the oversight that they provide to auditors, but also to put out best practices and to provide information to auditors that give them plans on how to deal with real world integrity challenges that they face. So our Speak Up campaign was extremely successful. We went from about 50 cases a year to now we're probably going to tip the scale up just over 400 cases this year. In the last 2 years, having an 800% growth shows all of those features that Helen was referring to in the beginning of this call today, that we're building a compliance standard. We're bringing value to our members and stakeholders by building confidence and trust so that we can mitigate, manage, and prevent risks. So what we do through our process is evaluate remediation pathways for people who've made smaller issues or had smaller integrity issues, train them how to get on a better path, use the information that APSCA can provide them, and also fit into that ecosystem better so that we're not having bad actors or issues that bounce from around the industry and create this transition of bad behavior. We really try to get as proactive as we can to remain on top of that. And the Audit Integrity Program is giving us those areas where we can help improve the oversight and control, improving the business partner integrity. So we've been meeting with you, some of the business partners, more often. We provide a presentation, we help review. Some of you have shared with us your training programs, and we make those available in our recognized training so that there's more balance to what the auditors can receive on a CPD, a continuing professional development side, and also so that there's just better awareness. So there's some confidence and trust that brands and retailers and facilities can come to us and report issues. And it helps give us a more 360-degree view of where integrity issues are happening. And we're very proud to be in the position to connect all of you through as a hub and working with amfori to be able to reach your membership on a deeper level, but also working with you to reach across collectively the collaborative programs has been really effective. And we look forward to not only all of the great work we've done in the past year and a half working on this project, but moving forward to 2026. And then the last thing I wanted to touch was on the data and the integrity. I do have to admit, again, I mentioned Lisa, she's our data guru within our team. And one thing that we are able to do is to collect data from all of the collaborative programs that we work with and help triangulate some of the issues. So we're able to share that information back, and it does help us have better informed risk indicators. And it does help create smarter audits. So we're looking, as Ross mentioned, not only at the competency, the integrity of the audit, the quality of the audit, we're trying to ensure that confidence and trust comes from all of this work that we're doing together. And let's take a look at the next slide. Let's talk about what we've done in 2025. Again, going back to our top 3 areas of our collaborative program working group, you're going to see a lot of alignment because, as I said, the collaborative program working group that we meet with on every 6 weeks, we have an interaction with those 13, 14 collaborative programs, and we work with them to focus on these 3 top issues: the data information exchanges, how we can get better, streamlined, clean data and share it back, receive it in, triangulate it, and share it back in a meaningful way. We also have conducted some joint investigations, which have been extremely successful. One of the areas we focus on with our investigations, as Ross mentioned, was credible evidence. And sometimes it's hard to get that from a single source. So we've been able to enhance the depth of our investigation processes, and it's led to better processes and development of remediation, working with people on having monitoring and continued improvement processes instilled into systems that needed some tweaking and needed alignment with our code or with the collaborative programs to be able to meet the industry standards. And so we work really hard on that. We do also, as Ross mentioned, have disciplinary boards that hear the cases that are most systemic or egregious or industry impactful. And in those cases, we do have sanctions that are applied up to revocation. So revocation for us is permanent, and we go through an appeals process. We have a very robust due process, and we look at what the standards are. We benchmark ourselves against other oversight and governance bodies constantly to make sure that we're providing the most fair outcomes for our disciplinary reviews, and also that we're staying in line with what works best for promoting the best practices across the industry. We also work with our collaborative programs on communications, particularly if there's something that's industry shaking that we want to share. And we are continuing to do that. So stay tuned. You'll have a little bit more collaborative communications coming forward. And we feel like that's also helpful with auditor fatigue and with just in general fatigue of getting the same communication from multiple parties, and trying to make it easier for all of you as consumers within the industry to be able to process things more quickly and to hear, okay, this is an aligned message, so there's some weight to it. There's multiple parties bringing this to you together. We also look at auditor capacity and building, and that's a common goal that we have, to be able to maintain and grow the level of certified social compliance auditors in the ecosystem. And Ross mentioned the baseline of everything that we do from an integrity perspective is our code and standards of professional practices. So we are in the process now of refreshing our code and our disciplinary framework, and we're seeking feedback from key stakeholders and members, and we will have an open comment period as well, because we want our code to reflect the best integrity processes across our entire membership and throughout our stakeholder ecosystem as well. And then I know Bethany's going to go really heavy into the goals and the accomplishments of the AIP program. And again, we're looking at standardizing assurance and having that information available to you. We do that through our own internal, which is very, as I mentioned, collaborative, but also focused on finding clarity and making sure that it's navigable so that there's better adherence to it, understanding and streamlining those processes. So when something goes wrong, we can jump in, fix it faster, and fix it better. And that goes with the governance of auditors as well. We do consider auditors on the front line. We look at ways to provide them with incentives and carrots to always conduct best practices. And I think it's apparent that it is working. As I mentioned, 800% more of the allegations that we receive. We see a lot more coming from auditors. When I started with APSCA a few years ago, we had the majority of our allegations came from firms, and they were just letting us know when something happened, that they had to disassociate with an auditor, or that they were concerned about something and wanted our help investigating. And now we see a very large variety. We have about 40% of our calls come from whistleblowers, which come from anyone across the industry. And we have very robust whistleblower protection program and zero retaliation policies to make sure that the reporters can come to us in confidentiality and with confidence and trust. So we really worked hard to build that, and that aligns so well with the goals of amfori and the AIP. So I'm going to turn it back over to Bethany to give you more details about the great work that she's been leading us through with the AIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was great. Thank you both, Ross and Stephanie. I would like to give a reminder to ask your questions in the chat. There's a Q&A section, because we've got APSCA here, we've got our amfori team here. We would really like to hear from you, and we'll do them at the end. So keep them coming. So we're on to uncontrolled third parties, another work package that we're going into now. So just to recap, this uncontrolled third parties, this one was mostly relating to, so it was the enhanced oversight and control of third parties, but this was related to these two documents that you can see there. We had brought out those two documents. One was for business partners and members, and the other one was for monitoring partners. It was all around, guidance of managing consultants, guide to use ethical consultancy services. And we really wanted to check the adherence to these rules, the compliance to these guidance that we brought out. So you can see on this timeline, I've got a few ticks that we've done here. We had a gap analysis of the questions against the guidance, what we could ask to determine if they were compliant with these guidances. We had a review period with our project group. The next one is we had 3 different stakeholders that we had to audit this against in some way. Maybe audit's not the best name for it because we did some different approaches, which I'll talk about next. And then finally, some guidance, feedback, and improvement report. So we really wanted to, instead of bringing out new guidances or new rules or new requirements surrounding this unethical consultancy, we wanted to see if this was already effective as it is, or if we need to bring out more in the future. So on the next slide, it gives a little bit more detail. So we have on the left-hand side, this was for the member. So for the member, we had originally 3 options. It was going to be an audit conducted by amfori, an internal audit trained by the amfori on a new scope, so their internal audit team that was trained by us. And then the third was a self-assessment questionnaire. So we had 2 volunteers for members to participate in this part. They selected the SOQ mainly due to the short turnaround time. We needed the results within the year because this integrity project was planned just for the year. And usually they've made their audit plans in advance of that, and it would be quite hard to retrain the teams to squeeze it in for that year, depending on when they had everything scheduled. So the SOQ, yes, it was a useful pilot. We managed to do it in combination with an interview as well, so that it wasn't just a form filled out. But there were some key areas for improvement. So we noted, for example, the SAQ needed to improve the questions to reflect the different business models. So this was a really key one because they had a lot of different oversight and responsibilities depending on what business model they had. So we wanted to be a little bit less restrictive if we were to go forward. And we also kept in mind, SAQs are normally more useful when they're used to trend data, and we only had 2 members do this part. So yeah, the benefits would have been seen on a much larger scale or a larger sample. So, but this assessment has all been noted in our integrity report for the end of this year. But what we're kind of concluding from this SAQ specifically is that, yes, it gave us valuable insights, but now we're thinking it might be time to explore other ways to engage members and drive change and hold them a bit accountable. So I've put there member accountability, RPP, responsible purchase practices, which I'll talk a little bit later because it overlapped with another work package and one of the priority areas. So then onto the purple, monitoring partners. So for this one, we had considered 2 approaches, a separate audit or integrating it into our quality partners' existing quality activities. So we decided to go forward with that one. It was the easiest to adapt. What we had done was we had adapted the MAC document and updated it. So this is our minimum accessibility criteria. And this document is what we use to check compliance when we go to the sites. It's what the audit companies have to follow. So when we go there, we audit against that. We had 2 rounds of feedback with our quality partner on this. We had 2 calibration meetings. We also spoke with the local auditors to ensure consistency. And it was really nice that the pilot was a success. To let you know some more information, maybe what was included in this, what was updated. So we wanted to cover more high-risk stakeholders. So we spoke more about freelancers, schedulers, sales teams, coordinators, report reviewers. There was about, I think, 10 different specific groups we wanted to tackle. And then some key topics for us that we wanted to address was, the conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest, handling grievances, rules of engagement for scheduling and audit payments, which was a big topic for us this year. Of course, general ethical conduct, and then specifically, which has already been mentioned today, control and oversight of auditors while on site. So this is what we had updated. We did a pilot this year with one of the monitoring partners for a local office audit. And now we've just shared the document with all the scheme managers in our global calibration meeting that we had recently. And next year, we're going to be implementing that and monitoring them against it. So that's great news. And then there'll be more results for you. So then the last one is our yellow box on business partners. So we had a lot of spot checks this year. I'm not going to share the numbers yet, but in the future, we will be sharing this. So just to let you know, though, already that this has been the biggest number of spot checks that amfori has ever completed in 1 year. So really congratulations to the team. That was fantastic. And so also to let you know that, the primary focus was on consultancy, but we explored a lot of other relevant and high risk topics. So the team worked really incredibly hard. The business partners had been super transparent and cooperative throughout. And before I provide you with a bit more information, I want to talk to you a little bit about what a spot check is. When I'm talking about that, what do I mean? So on the next slide, in practice, just to give you a bit more information. So spot checks and how they fit into our, quality program, our assurance program. So spot checks validate the on-site realities and strengthen our assurance framework. So it enables us to assess risks in areas flagged as a high priority, and it's really ensuring our oversight remains robust and responsive. So the selection process and these checks are conducted in accordance to our own spot check methodology, our own procedure on this. And this is really ensuring that we focus on the resources on where it matters most. We can't do everything after all, as much as we want to. It's important to clarify also that spot checks, because we had this question before, spot checks are distinctive quality activity. They are not the same as duplicate audits, which we do not do anymore. We did this in the past. So spot checks are much more targeted, risk focus. We are really prioritizing high risk areas. Maybe that's due to previous findings, complaints, a lot of other indicators, our own trend data, KPIs. So that's also why we're the ones that are attending the audit ourselves and why we developed our own methodology. So again, to strengthen this oversight accountability. They do not replace any other quality assurance activity, which Savan will get into a little bit later. Instead, we always see this as they complement each other. It's just adding another layer of oversight. And then finally, I think it's also important for you to know that when spot check findings are critical, we've identified these high risk issues. We are linking with the members and suppliers to work on remediation and closure. We are also evaluating audit companies' service delivery and following up to ensure, the right corrective actions are completed. So I think that this is also, sometimes people ask, oh, what's the actual outcome? You found these things, but what's next? So by closing the loop from detection to remediation, I'm really hoping you can see that spot checks turn oversight basically into tangible progress. That's why they're one of my favorites. And then on the next slide, yep, thank you. The spot checks are 2025. So I've got here the most common integrity issues on the left and the quality issues on the right. Of course, there's a lot of overlap often when we don't know what the root cause necessarily is, but I think it's nice as a short slide to look at. So these findings are not just a list of problems. They're really a window for you guys to see the systemic challenges that we need to tackle. So these are what's appearing more than once, I can definitely say, really systemic issues. So we got double bookkeeping, coaching, worker interviews, weak verification of wages and hours, unethical consultant involvement, one of my favorites, and auditors being overly familiar with the sites. So these patterns tell us something fundamental, that audits are not always reflecting the reality on the ground. This is not something that's such a crazy revelation, I think, in this day and age, like when we're talking to our competitors, when we're in this industry, this kind of ecosystem of social audits. This is what we're hearing from our auditors, our scheme managers, and this was the whole point of the Integrity Project. So what does this mean for us? It means we have to start asking ourselves harder questions. So how do we ensure audits start reflecting the reality in some locations where maybe this isn't the case, or in some specific cases? And it's not just, this compliance on paper. So it's about stronger independence measures, better auditor rotation to reduce familiarity, more robust verification tools, really to name a few, because there's a lot of different approaches we're going to be taking. But also we'll be asking, will tackling unethical consultancy involvement solve part of this problem? If consultants are coaching workers or influencing audit outcomes, reducing that influence with our plans for next year, which I'll also talk about in a bit, really could be a game changer. But what else needs to happen alongside that? And this is why we're also going to make sure we continue to be collaborative next year so that we don't miss anything along the way. And then also, what if auditors had the option to note whether they believe the documents they had been shown were in fact truthful and accurate, or if they were not? Would this change how we interpret audit results? Could this give a new layer of insight? Or is this just adding unnecessary complexity to the audit? So this is something that we're really talking about. And also we want to address root causes. We know buyer pressure is a big one. It's pushing suppliers into unethical practices. And we have some approaches that we would like to try out next year on this as well. So I'd like to also just finally say that, these findings were incredibly valuable to us. They really gave us evidence we needed to design the solutions and go beyond this kind of surface level fixes. And I think the openness from the business partners sharing this information was a huge win. It really showed that they were trusting and being transparent, and it's what we needed to strengthen the integrity of the system. And this is also, you can kind of see why spot checks are just so important. And I hope that we continue to grow this in the future. Also to know, for those that joined the previous webinar, I think it was maybe the beginning of this year, we spoke about results of the spot check last year. You will see a lot of repetition here, which is actually really good for us because it means that we're getting more data and we can understand the severity, the significance, the likelihood of these occurrences, and just paint the picture a little bit more accurately so that we can tackle the solutions in a much more effective way and prioritize our resources. So that is my lovely summary for spot checks. And now I'm going on to auditor, managing partner, and business partner integrity. Before I do that, I will just say that the spot checks were mostly led by my colleague Manoush and Savan, who are the best at spot checks, the best at organizing this and orchestrating all of this. So they really worked their socks off this year and they've done a fantastic job. So on to this next. I've combined two of the work packages because these are the two that we had the same approach for. So it was just easier and there was a lot of overlap. So, we had 35 solutions between those two work packages. Because we are such a crazy, intense team, we tried to tackle nearly all of them in some capacity, which is all going to be written in this integrity report due the end of this year for internal use. And then we're going to, cascade some of the information externally. And you can see all those nice details. And then 8 were overlapping between those two work packages: auditor monitoring partner integrity concerns and business partner integrity concerns. From this, the project group then voted on what their favorite ones were for us to prioritize. And these were our top 5. We were going to have 6, but one of them overlapped, the risk alerts for auditors. So we've chosen those 5. And this is really where I'll have a chance now to go into more detail on these activities today for you. Not the 35, unfortunately, or we'd have a 5-hour webinar, but also how they connect to our plans for next year. So if I go on to unethical third parties. So unethical third parties, we spoke about it in the other work package already, but it was just focused on the guidance. This came out again when we were doing the integrity concerns list. So this is why it's ended up being its own spin-off project this year. So what did we do? We ended up having a spin-off project. We worked with an external consultant on a decision quality approach. We are calling it for now this Path to Ethical Governance project. It's very much focused on consultancies. And I'm talking about consultancies, unethical consultants, but also every which name you can call these third parties, brand ambassadors, and everything else. It's really about strengthening governance and integrity. This was a key issue for us. So what did we do to build on this? We captured insights we had about 25 specialists, let's say, from the project group and amfori that came together on all the different issues. And we had a questionnaire they had to fill out. We had about 700 lines of information we had to sift through. Super data-rich process, which I'm grateful is now over. And to make sense of this complexity, this is why we did this decision quality approach. So super critical, because using this approach, it's for complex projects. It's to help us make choices that are well-informed, logically sound, aligned with our long-term objectives. And it kind of gave us a structured way to balance risks, test assumptions, and avoid bias. So there was a lot of moving parts, and decision quality is something you can use for everything, but especially for things where there's a lot of stakeholders, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of unknown and different variables. So we then explored 4 strategic options. They were kind of extreme versions that tested the limits of what could be done. And then we did another evaluation. We proposed a hybrid strategy. I bet at this point you're thinking, how did we have the time? I do not know how we had the time to do all this. The details are now still being finalized, but the concept has been approved for next year. So this path to ethical governance. It's split into 3 phases. This could change, we're being adaptable for this, but I can tell you that phase 1 next year is all around strengthening internal support. So it's really, focusing on proactive onboarding of our business partners, training, direct engagement with the business partners, reducing their reliance on unethical consultants. And then before moving on to the phase 2, we really have to conduct more market research on the pricing, service model, scheme alignment. So a lot of work to be done next year, but at least we can already get started. So the ultimate goal is kind of to create a governance framework that is practical, scalable, and basically deeply rooted in ethical principles, which will be amazing. So that's my lovely overview. Stay tuned because we will be asking for help next year. And now I have risk alerts for auditors. So for this one, in the current audit framework, findings are typically documented only when supported by clear evidence. I think this is quite obvious. So unfortunately, auditors frequently encounter situations where there are indicators of potential risk or maybe discomfort, but that do not meet the threshold for our current formal reporting, which we're now calling these like softer signals. So these are currently remaining undocumented, but the problem with this is that these can be early indicators of future non-conformances or operational weaknesses. So they're actually super important. So we're trying to talk about now that by not capturing them, we risk losing, valuable insights that can inform future audits and strategic decisions. So the Integrity Project found that auditors were facing issues for their own situation, so their own safety. They're not feeling comfortable, but also for the business partners specifically that are not being raised. So we currently have some expected channels. We would like this information, zero tolerances we would like to be raised, or we have confidential comments. But we also had some issues with this. So auditors that are having some issues affecting their own situation, like safety, well-being, or some other challenges, they didn't feel like there was an appropriate channel for this. They didn't feel comfortable putting this in the confidential comments where it's also accessible to the member, or they're not comfortable raising it in their own internal channels. And there's various reasons for this, which we're also capturing at the minute. So the expectation is to raise such concerns with their audit company or APSCA, which APSCA spoke a little bit about, and we're trying to increase this, but we can still see there's a bit of a gap. And then when we're talking about issues relating to the business partner, or maybe suspected unethical behavior, lack of tangible evidence, it's not being raised as a finding, or a zero tolerance despite our precautionary principle. Auditors also indicated that the confidential comment section is not perceived as super trustworthy. It's not just amfori that has eyes on it. And they also had concerns already about potential repercussions for the individual auditor or in fact, the audit company. So, we had a lot of different examples, which I'll give a couple. I mentioned the zero tolerances, but suspected document falsification, data manipulation. They recognize the consultant on site. They know that's an unethical consultant, but they can't find any documents to provide that they, in fact, don't work for them and they are a consultant. They have their HR contract. They have everything in order. How are they meant to raise that in an audit report? That's a good question. We have, workforce concealment. If they kind of saw that some people were leaving the back end of the factory, but don't have any proof to back this up, and no one said anything, and they're not 100% convinced, we might not get access to that information, which could have been vital with audit planning. Hostile behavior by the business partner. The member should be aware of this. The safety concerns of the auditor. We need to protect the auditor's well-being. They work their socks off. Also, hospitality bordering on bribery was something we discussed. And it's not to say that we need to really reprimand when these cases arise, but if you're going somewhere and they're offering you not just tea and coffee, but a little bit more, a lot of snacks, cakes, 3-course meal from the restaurant next door, and they're just being so friendly, they'd be offended. At what point is this hospitality bordering on bribery? And are there ways we can tackle this in a more proactive way instead of just reacting and always disciplining, like the stick method? And also the business partners expecting the auditor's arrival. even though it was a fully unannounced audit? Could we ask that question to the auditors as a soft signal? Oh, I think they expected my arrival because they had the room set up and the coffee was hot waiting for me. Just these little things that could really help us in the future. It would be really beneficial for us. And so this is also something we're going to start doing some work with groups next year to see which ones would be the best to capture, which would be the most helpful. And also, we want to have some conversations around. We've already heard from auditors in the local calibration meeting. They really want to remain anonymous. How are we going to do this in a way that we can, feed it into the next audit when we really want to enhance audit preparation and safety, as mentioned, improve future audit planning, ensuring there's sufficient time. Maybe they need another auditor, and maybe they should arrive later in the day because they are always prepared for an audit in the morning, whatever that may be. Improve collaboration. We want the audit companies to support their auditors more if they need to. And same with APSCA, which you've heard from them today. They really do want to help. Risk trend analysis, of course, if we have all these soft signals that we're able to analysis a little bit better, fantastic. We could actually, hopefully in the future, have more audits that reflect the more accurate reality. We can do more continuous improvement and we can have a greater impact. And that was my really final sentence on that. And then the next one, we have enhanced zero tolerance, which ties in. There's a lot of overlap between those two, as you can imagine. So that's great. A lot of work for next year, as you can see by this point. So just to recap zero tolerance and what it means at amfori, these are really our severe non-compliances, issues that fundamentally violate our standards, require immediate action, forced labor, child labor, bonded labor, inhumane treatment, occupational health and safety, unethical behavior, which unethical behavior could be quite broad. We want to bring out more guidance, more information, improve this process. If zero tolerances are not raised nor addressed, it really also undermines the trust in our audits and our assurance framework as a whole. We have our own ESG risk compass that we use. It flags high risk areas. We know where they should be raised, in which countries, in which areas, what specific topics. We can see they're not being raised in the reports. We can see what others are raising, the NGO reports that come in. We're not naive to the reality that's happening around us, but we really want to improve this industry as a whole and increase these findings and being raised. So this is also why we're really pushing for this. And I want to show how transparent we're being about these different topics. Also to know on this is that we had some recent findings from an auditor efficiency survey. So we had a completion rate of about 30% of our auditors across our entire scheme. So quality, environment, and social audits. 30% completion rate was pretty amazing for that first questionnaire, I would like to say as well. This was sent out in August. I think it was finished in August or September time. They had 2 months to complete it. And it was to deepen our understanding. We've also had some feedback sessions already in our calibration meetings this year and our global calibration meetings. And the kind of overall plan is, this zero tolerance process and its documentation needs to be updated next year. The updates need to clarify procedures, improve transparency, make sure the process addresses the quality integrity risks effectively that we've also mentioned. And so, the review is already ongoing now. The data collection, our feedback rounds are ongoing, but the real transformation will come next year. So stay tuned, and you also might be involved. Then on to member accountability. I also see there's not many questions, so I'm actually surprised. Maybe I'm being super clear, but maybe you just want a little question on how do I get involved next year? And we would love to include you. So member accountability. Over the past months, we've really been exploring different proposals for this, each offering different level of depth and complexity. I'm just kind of giving you a screenshot of what it was looking like. These range from, lighter approaches, more comprehensive options, and it's a very complicated approach. It's not just about choosing a proposal, but there's a much more strategic question for us at play. How far do we want to be involved in shaping purchase practices, ensuring member accountability, to what extent? So this is super important position for us to be in at the moment. We've looked into all these root cause analysis. We know that major audit findings, we're seeing these issues at supplier level. are not isolated. We know they are linked to buyer behavior. And just to give you background, because I think sometimes you might be surprised at why this is the focus. Buyers prioritize price or speed without considering ethical implications, and then suppliers feel pressure to cut corners or engage in unethical practices. We know buyers ask for a specific grade. It's the same problem. The auditees are doing whatever it takes to make sure that they get that grade, doing whatever means necessary. And maybe the focus has moved away from the continuous improvement. We had our continuous improvement project this year, so you can tell we're trying to work on these things, but it's something that we really need to address in the right way. So kind of breaking this cycle requires more than just audits. So this is why, ours is the monitoring team or the auditing team. And you might be thinking, oh, their role is only audits, but you can see already it's expanded well beyond that. It requires addressing purchasing practices, accountability at member level. We really need to tackle them, and so that we don't have to force the suppliers into doing things they don't need to do. I don't want to play the blame game. I feel like everyone has some responsibility and we just need to help them along the way. So yeah, it's not just about a single responsibility or a single decision. It really touches on our long-term positioning and governance and defining actually how proactive we want to be in driving this and how far we want to work with our peers and in this industry, because it's not something that just affects amfori. It's really the entire network. So this is something we really want to get right rather than just rushing, which is new to me because I love to just do, as you can see. So let's just take a step back and we're going to work on the theory behind this a little bit more. But work will continue next year as part of a much longer and bigger initiative. And we'll update you as this evolves. So now on to increased audit quality activities, which I would like to hand over to my lovely colleague, Sivan, who's done a fantastic job over the years at amfori working on the quality program. And I'm super happy because it's his birthday today that he's very kindly speaking today. So thank you, Sivan. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you so much, Bethany, and thank you for your best wishes. And thank you for the latest and interesting updates related to Integrity Project. And good morning, good afternoon, everyone. If I may, let us proceed with the on-site activities of the quality program, which is another branch of the Audit Assurance Program. The activities displayed on this slide have been developed primarily to meet operational quality requirements. However, given the inseparable nature of the Integrity Project and the quality program under Audit Assurance Program, all these activities directly support and feed the Integrity Project as well. As you are aware, we have many resources such as written documents and training materials that play a role in shaping the amfori ecosystem. Many of these resources, which have been prepared for auditing companies and for auditors, set expectations regarding how amfori audits should be planned, conducted, and reported. And through these activities on the screen, we are attempting to verify in the field whether these expectations are being met. And these activities aren't just checks. They are part of the system designed to safeguard accuracy, transparency, and accountability. Ultimately, they ensure that the results we deliver are not only correct, but also trusted by everyone involved. So now let's go through the details of these applications together. Let's start with the office audits. As you can see here, there are two different types of office audits. Scheme management office audits focus on global scale operations of our auditing companies, while local office audits focus on the operations of the sampled one specific region. And the main purpose of these office audits is to assess the activities carried out based on how our auditing companies manage their amfori operations. During these audits, the management structure of the sampled offices and the related policies, procedures are assessed in detail. Most of the office audits are performed with the help of our assurance partner KPMG since 2017. Additionally, our assurance partner KPMG team supports us in witness audits. And in witness audits, basically a participation is provided in an amfori audit, in an actual amfori BSCI audit. And we assess how auditors conduct their audits according to the amfori system manual, other relevant guidance documents, or the memos that was shared by us. Following these quality activities carried out by KPMG, reports are prepared, and the management systems and the operational performance of the auditing companies are assessed and recorded. And where necessary, in the end of this desktop assessment, after the on-site activities, in the end of the desktop assessment, where necessary, sanctions are applied to auditing companies or individual auditors who fail to meet expectations. The remaining 3 activities on the screen, observations, spot checks, and joint visits, are activities carried out solely by amfori staff, by us. Let's start with the observations. These activities only assist in training of our own employees. Designated amfori employees observe how the processes progress by participating in an actual amfori audit or quality activity specified in the slide. We basically attend as observers to office audits or amfori audits and try to learn from the experts and the auditors. But these visits are, of course, also a great opportunity to see the realities on the ground and to communicate directly with the factory representatives and factory workers as well. Spot checks are the applications which we have launched in 2023, and they are designed to verify whether amfori BSCI audits were carried out in accordance with the quality and integrity operations, integrity expectations. Perhaps many of you remember, as Bethany mentioned during her presentation as well, we used to have duplicate audits, but spot checks audits also, although similar to duplicate audits in terms of purpose and the methodology, but it's totally different in their implementation and reporting process. And last but not least, the joint visits refer to visits we have made with some of our members. In the past years, we also conducted visits with part of our members who play an active role in the field. And the main purpose of these visits is to similar to spot check activities. And lastly, it's not included in this slide, but in response to a question raised during Bethany's presentation, I would like to briefly mention about the offsite activities that we perform. As Sonia already mentioned in her answer, in addition to our on-site activities, we also have off-site activities, and such as investigations, regular report reviews, regular data analysis, and capacity building activities. In one of our previous webinars, we gave a more detailed explanation, presentation about these activities. So if you would like to learn more, you can access the recording of the relevant webinar via the link shared by my colleague Sonia. And I can say in particular that the collaboration we have advanced with APSCA within the scope of Audit Integrity Project has paved the way for us to conduct joint and productive investigations with APSCA this year. So big thanks to the APSCA team, especially Stephanie and Lisa, and my colleagues Sonia, Bethany, and Vicente once again. On the next slide, before the allocated time to me concludes, I would also like to share an overview of the quality activities we have carried out between 2024 and 2025, and we'll try to share our objectives for the next year. As evident, there has been a marked increase in the distribution and number of quality activities undertaken during the transition from 2024 to 2025. And our objective is to maintain the current momentum into the next year with a view to increasing the number of activities. We are committed to transparency, and we want to share the directional trends with you. At this stage, we cannot disclose the exact figures due to confidentiality requirements, but the visual reflects the real movement and comparison over the years. So once we finalize our analysis based on all of these activities, we will share the details with all the relevant stakeholders. But although I cannot give an exact figure for the number of activities, I can say that there has been an approximate 20% increase in the number of activities performed between 2024 and 2025. And as I mentioned, we are in the process of completing the necessary resource and infrastructure work to ensure that this momentum is maintained in the coming year as well. Yes, that is all the information that we can provide at this time regarding the field activities. I hope you found these activities as interesting as we did. If you have any questions, I will be here. But for now, I would like to hand back to Bethany to continue her presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sivan, for that nice overview. So this one is a little bit more text heavy and a lot of information. And I'm aware that we also want some time for closing remarks and Q&A. But just to give you an overview of some of the specific inputs from the AIP into the audit quality program. So I've grouped them into increased support on the left-hand side and increased standards and controls on the right-hand side, just to easier understand all of this information. So I've mentioned, better alignment. We spoke already about bribery hospitality. And also there was another area that I haven't mentioned yet, but audit cycle expectations and benefits. So we've been doing a lot of investigation reports on the audit cycle and who follows it, who does follow-ups, who doesn't, and what are the portions looking like, and how to do some next steps to tackle those individuals that are maybe unnecessarily doing or not following our audit cycle intentionally, but doing it for their own business benefit. And it's something that we need to have a more open conversation about and put some better next steps. Then stronger controls and risk-based approach. I've mentioned the ESG risk compass, but we've now shared this with we're going to, as soon as we get the NDAs, with our scheme managers, so they can have an aligned risk approach that amfori has, that our members have, and then they're going to be aligned with that. So that's great, and better preparation for the audits. And then they can also see where we're expecting to find more zero tolerances and critical findings. Monitoring partner support, we need to support them a little bit better because we need to have a bigger auditor pool, which also APSCA a little bit spoke about. So how are we going to do this? The monitoring partners have asked for our support so that we can provide more forecasting data, which has been done since October, and we're going to be doing this on a quarterly basis. Auditor support, so streamline reporting for higher efficiency. We sent out this efficiency survey, which I'd mentioned previously. We had 30% completion rate, a lot of different information we have to go through to try and improve the efficiency of the audit reports, which will sit in our area, also the methodology revision, and a couple other areas. For increased standards and controls, we have greater oversight. So transparent audit scheduling and payments, which I spoke to in detail at the last webinar, I think, or previous one. But this was also Savan's area with our colleague Jonathan, where we're really trying to make sure that there's more guidance and controls and oversight in place of who's paying for the audit. So that's great. And there's been lots of communication on this externally. So best practices shared. Quality partner are summarizing and sharing our best practices, which will be input into our next global calibration meeting and MAC improvements. So that's great. Strengthening the MAC and documentation, and I've given a few examples there, but this will be something we do more frequently and more periodically, so that we can improve the controls that we put in place for our monitoring partners and hopefully raise the standard at a greater speed than we have in the past. And then at the bottom there, I've said this enhance efficiency, including the survey, just because it goes into the methodology revision and not only our activities. So I know I said we had 35 solutions. I try to give you a few extra ones here. It's not everything, but I think it's enough information for one webinar. And now we can go on to the Q&A. Sonia?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, thank you all so far. While we wait for more questions to arrive, because you are too shy today, not very common in those in this webinar series. I think we are all exhausted. It's the end of the year, and we've all gone through a lot. One important comment that I really need to share: this project was not an internal project. It was a project that went on with the collaboration of all of you. Some of you here attending this webinar, and it wouldn't have been possible in a different way. Also, I would like to mention here that quality integrity cannot be dissociated, and one feeds the other, and that's why this project has also been really important to enhance our assurance program and our planning and the credibility of the work we do every day. So this said, we have a question that I think better suit for Bethany. And the question is, can you explain a bit more the evaluation procedure for the Audit Integrity Project? Who are the stakeholders that evaluate the project, and if there is any regular interval?
Yeah, so yeah, like Sonia said, we have this collaborative approach. What we did for updates and information, we had a lot of meetings at the start of this year for the project group because we started quite intense. So there was probably sometimes several meetings a month. We also had the root cause analysis. We had to have a session individually for that. Honestly, lots and lots of meetings at the beginning, and then through the summer, it kind of dwindled a little bit. But on top of that, for the project group, we also had project group updates so that each of the work packages could stay up to date on what everything's going, to keep this cross collaboration. And they had a chance to ask questions to the different people in the project group because sometimes they only focus on one or two work packages. Sometimes it was all of them. And then on top of that, we also had the focus group meetings, which were people who wanted to have updates or they wanted to be involved in the integrity project, but they didn't have a chance to because they didn't have time or because we didn't choose them for the project. We only had a restricted number of people. I think it was 35 in the end. So we gave them another chance where they could be updated also on a quarterly basis, and I'd provide them some additional information, sneak peeks, as you will, before we shared and communicated externally. So this was something that we provided lots of different updates to different groups. And then, of course, also during this webinar, and we also touched base, of course, in all of our local calibration meetings and global calibration meetings on the integrity project. We did a check-in, we tested some ideas with them. So they're also very much aligned. So great question. I'm hoping that summarizes how we made sure that we were kind of evaluating this check-ins, keeping everyone informed.
We have more questions coming. I think I'm going to ask the next one. What is the procedure to partner with amfori and act as an auditor on behalf of amfori? Is there a program partner model available for India region? Sevan, do you want to answer this one or do you want me to answer? Feel free. Okay, he is replying.
Okay, can you hear me?
perfectly.
Okay. So being an auditor is a long journey, I would say. Yeah, for auditors, first of all, the APSCA registration and being an APSCA associated auditor is a must for all of our amfori BSCI auditors. And besides that, for amfori BSCI, we also have a dedicated 5-day auditor training. So all of the candidate auditors should participate to this specific training. And after the training session and after the evaluation and examination of the training, if the candidate successfully completes all of these steps, they have the right to become an amfori BSCI auditor. I hope this answered the question, Sonia, but feel free if you want to add anything else.
I think it's quite comprehensive, but in case not clear, please feel free to ask for more. And another question, and this one I would hand over to Beth. Responsible businesses always begin from top management team, including stakeholders across the company, and value chain is a bottleneck these days. How and where to begin? Any insights?
So I think a couple of things that we've already been speaking about internally on this topic is that, we know that companies still have this very cost-only approach or priority for their procurement, and we want to move away from this to a value-based procurement. We also have a lot of talks around, when we talk about sustainability, sustainable business models, it's not always the linear way, but more circular. So we can't do everything. We can't change every single business, but what we can do is hopefully provide them with some opportunities to have those conversations for those that are willing, bring them ahead of the curve, and then the rest will follow for this more value-based procurement. So we really do need to involve top management, like you said, but also the procurement teams, because sometimes often there's a complete misalignment from my own experience in the procurement teams and the sustainability teams on what direction we're going in. So I think this ESG and supplier contracts, obviously this responsible purchase practices, this is where it comes in. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We know there's a lot out there already, guidance, information, support. Can we do this more collaboratively? Can we have a better impact? Supplier development programs, how we can help collaborate this a little bit more, better engagement. But there's a lot of different solutions we're also thinking about with this, but I hope that kind of gives you where our head's at on it.
And questions coming also for you, Bethany, on how can a member participate in the further discussions on the AIP?
Good question. So you can email info@. Normally I just get an email going, I really want to be involved. I saw Bethany speak. And then that comes straight to my email after that. So please do that because we are looking at new participants for next year. We're obviously going to give our current participants the chance to remain, but we're going to have some spin-offs that you've seen already. Some are going to be more interested than others in these specific work streams that we're doing.
Thanks, Beth. And another question, maybe I'll leave this one to Stephanie. How can people in this call can reach out to APSCA?
Well, thanks, Sonia. I think that if you want to report something to us that's a concern that you would like to have an integrity review, please report that directly to ethics@apsca.org. And if you're interested more so in finding out if you're eligible for a membership as a member firm or member auditor, you can go to our website, www.theapsca.org. So it's theapsca.org. You can also just email us at ethics@theapsca.org and we will be happy to direct you. Additionally, we are looking to continue growing and reaching out to other collaborative programs and other brands, retailers. So please reach out to us if you have an interest. We're always looking to grow our working group outreach, and we appreciate the opportunity to be on the call today. Thanks, Sonia.
Thanks, Stephanie. And another question, this one I will hand over to Sevan. The question is off-site assessments, and I think the question refers to spot checks. Would you do interviews before or after the audit to check the credibility of the statements given from the workers?
Yeah, exactly. This is the Actually, this is the main purpose of the spot checks. As Bethany mentioned during her presentation, we basically select recently amfori BSCI audited factories during the sampling of the spot check audits. And once we visit the factories, we also do an 99% of an amfori BSCI audit. And during these visits, worker interviews are also included. And besides the working conditions of the factory, we also focus on the integrity and the quality of the previous audit.
Thank you so much, Sevan. I think we have covered everything. Since no more questions, I'm going to ask my own question to everybody in this call today, before we jump into the closing remarks. What is your expectation for next year in what concerns not only integrity, but assurance and increased credibility of our services? Sevan, since you are here, you can be the first. What's your biggest dream for next year? Best wishes for 2026?
Best wishes for 2026. So I think it's very clear for all of us that it's the integrity and the quality, ensuring integrity and quality expectations is not a one-man show. So collaboration is quite important to tackle all of these challenges. I wish more and more collaboration for the next year among all of the stakeholders.
Thanks, Sevan. Stephanie, do you want to go next?
Sure. I agree. Collaboration is a key. And what I'm really looking forward to most next year is taking all of this effort that we put into collecting data and gathering information and really coming up with some solutions that are going to benefit the whole ecosystem. And I know we're on the right track with the AIP program and a lot of the things that we have in the works. But again, I'll just remind everybody, resource management is key. So let us know what the priorities are. Getting your feedback is helpful so that the more voices that we have in that collaboration, it will drive the activity. So, and I'm very thankful to be working with you guys on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Ross, do you want to share one word, your wishes for next year?
Wishes for next year, keep up the good work. Our industry continues to get a lot of focus and a lot of attention, and this kind of work not only addresses the naysayers, but really makes an improvement to the workers' lives who we're auditing. So great job and keep it up. Thanks
so much. Bethany, last but not least.
I feel like mine's so specific. Unethical third parties and raising the standard for members. They are my exciting topics for next year.
Thank you. Helen, your best wishes before you jump into your closing remarks.
Yes, Sonia, everything has been said already. So I think, and that's also my closing remark, it is about understanding how important the collaboration is. It's not an amfori topic only to handle audit integrity, to work on our assurance program. It's about collaboration with important partners like APSCA, KPMG, the auditors, our members, also business partners. It's a joint effort. And we need to collaborate and identify the root causes of unethical behavior, of integrity issues. And we heard today, and that's also included in the wishes for next year, that we continue this path. It's also about trust. So we are working together and we collaborate to reinforce credibility in audits. And that's a core for us. And we do it on multiple levels, on multiple actions. And we really appreciate that we complement each other and that we have a joint goal, and that's very important. So my wish is we continue this path, also include our members and business partners here and find ways forward. So that's my closing remark. I would like to thank our amfori team for preparing and presenting today on our activities And of course, I would like to thank Ross and Stephanie joining us today, explaining how we collaborate, how actions are complementing each other. So I'm very optimistic we are on a good way and we will become better. So thanks a lot.
So, as we end this webinar series, this was challenging, but very positive experience. And I think we were able to communicate a bit more to external stakeholders what the audit assurance team has been doing and how we all have some responsibility in what concerns audit assurance. Before we close, I would like to really send a big thank you to all the speakers in all the webinar series, to our keynote speakers, and to our colleagues behind the scenes that helped us deliver this series. A very special note to the auditing team, Sevan, Bethany, Anson, Manoj, Gosha, Rex, Vicente. Without you, none of this would have been possible. There won't be any activities to present or to discuss. Big kudos also to the amfori Marcom team that helped us make this series attractive, relevant, and overall possible to deliver to you. And to you all, thank you for attending. Thank you for your feedback on all the sessions. We will have more comms and more activities related with the AAP for next year. The format's still being planned, so stay tuned. And in case you want to watch the full series again, you can look for it in our YouTube channel. In this last slide, there is the link for the last feedback survey. Please fill it in and help us improve. And see you in 2026 again. Thank you.